Good morning, and thank you all for attending this significant unveiling today. I'm Joshua Wagner, Director of Centennial Art Center and Supervisor of Metro Parks Visual Arts. Thank you. We are excited to be here today to commemorate the events and the persons involved who played a pivotal role in the history of this facility behind me. First, I'd like to thank, though, our advisory committee that helped us develop the text for this historical marker. Dr. Lee Williams, Dr. Carol Busey, Dr. Phyllis Hildreth, and David Ewing. Their years of research and personal knowledge have helped make this possible. I'd also like to thank Jim Hubler and Jessica Reeves from the Metro Historical Commission. They helped us navigate all of the proper protocols and processes to bring this project to life. I'd like to thank John Tumanillo and the Centennial Park Conservancy, along with Michelle Crane and Creative Parks Nashville for funding this project. And from Parks, I'd like to thank Jackie Jones, Sherry Hips, Stevon Nellums, and Parks Director Monique Odom for supporting this project and helping it take flight. I would now like to invite Parks Director Monique Odom up to the podium to share some thoughts.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming out on such a beautiful day. I'm so glad the rain has held out. We have a beautiful day and a special event. Again, as Josh said, I want to thank everybody who has contributed thus far to making this event and those to come very special, very special. Thank you, Josh, for spearheading. Let's give Josh a hand, please. This is an important day as we acknowledge this very important moment in Nashville civil rights. I know that the mayor is on a fairly tight time schedule, so I will keep my remarks very brief and won't really make any. We have some great remarks coming later on. But I do want to thank Mayor Cooper for making time to come out today to take an active role in this unveiling and acknowledging this piece of Nashville history. I further want to thank the Parks Board for their support of the department and the city and me in making this a reality for us. And so, in the interest of time, I'd like to welcome Mayor Cooper to the podium to give his remarks. Thank you.
Well, my goodness, what an honor to be here. I want to just recognize some really great people who are here today. So important to our community. Howard Gentry, our clerk, and the Senator Brenda Gilmore is here. I think she's got the hardest job anybody has, working in a, is it a hostile work environment? No, it is a difficult environment. Our Vice Mayor Jim Schulman, who I've had the privilege the last couple of years to work with the city, and Brandon Taylor, here we are in his district, and it's fantastic. And then we've got Council Member Hurd at large. I used to be an at-large council member, so I know that is very hard. But there are a lot of people here who are making the city great. Vivian Woolhoyt, our property assessor, I think is here, and Brenda Wynn, our clerk, and all of our great candidates, because we're going to need all of them to be successful in leading the city going forward. A private shout out by me is to our historians and our historian community, because they're connecting us with the greatness of the past. And David Ewing and Dr. Williams and Carol Busey and the Metro Historical Commission, I mean, we and Jim, we are standing on your shoulders to help guide us forward. Now, Josh Wagner, your work here speaks for yourself. The Art Center is a treasure. Thank you. And Monique Odom, your leadership as Director of Parks is great. I'll just tell you, so much of my life is making work for Monique, right? We got another problem. We got some more to do. We've got something that needs to be repaired. I'm grateful to her. And Lee Williams, I mean, your scholarly work and community focus has informed and educated, inspired all of us. And again, our gratitude to our active historical community who are actively helping to commemorate our past is going to make us a better city. Evelyn Lillard, your work as a community leader and activist on your own and with your late husband has made Nashville better. I would not be mayor, I don't think, but for Kwame. I miss him every day. And his leadership in the city, his unique style was just a treasure for Nashville. Dr. Hildreth, thank you for your important work at American Baptist and the many contributions that you make to our nonprofit community and our world, and you're working to make us a more just, equitable, and sustainable city. And I am grateful. I'm a little, that is the most important work, but it's also, I'm sad to say it's hard work, but I'm just grateful that you're doing the work. So it's vital that we as a community acknowledge the past events in our city, no matter how difficult, in order for us to move forward together. And in Nashville, thanks to so many of you here today, we have actively embraced our past and to honor that legacy to go forward to make us a better city in the future. Now, last summer, we erected a historical marker in the honor of the late, great John Lewis, a civil rights icon, and we're so grateful, so blessed that he had such deep Nashville ties. I mean, my ability to say, Dr. King arranged for John Lewis to come to Nashville to college is just, that's just, what other city can say that? That is just, we're grateful to the colleges and we're grateful to John Lewis for coming, and we're grateful for Dr. King to recognize where he should be coming to college. Now, in the past winter, Metro Council has worked to have a plaza outside our historic Metro Courthouse. I see Sharon Hurd here, I know is very involved in renaming it the Diane Nash Plaza. And that's another legendary hero of the movement whose work came out of her Nashville experience that we want to honor. And then I want to invite all of us here to gather, hopefully next year, to the dedication of the James Lawson High School. That's a magnificent facility. It really is a college-level facility that is being built in Bellevue, and that's going to be a great moment for Nashville to dedicate that. Now, like the historical marker we're unveiling, this local recognition was long overdue. And it serves as a permanent reminder of what came before and a source of inspiration now. We're going to turn this into a source of inspiration for generations to come. And the story behind this location, as memorialized by the marker with these careful words, beautiful words, is a painful one. And I suspect that most Nashvillians are unaware of this history, but the marker is going to help change that. And I'm grateful to the historians to setting this out for all of us. And this story is not just painful, it also is a celebration of courage, the activism, the leadership of Kwame Lillard, Matthew Walker Jr., and others who fought for justice and inclusion. Now, the Arts Center, once the pool's bathhouse, and a place of divisiveness and discord, has become a vibrant and welcoming venue for our diverse community to enjoy. For 50 years now, the Centennial Arts Center has brought people together, young and old, from all parts of our city, and we celebrate that vision today. And let me just say, as a city, as a community, we are still on that road. The journey continues, but today is another step in the right direction. And I want to thank everyone is doing here to make Nashville a city that works and a city that works for everyone. I do, when the unveiling of the marker happens, I want the podium guests to come, but also our great civil rights veterans who are 3 here today: King Holland, Mary Jean Smith, Etta Simpson Ray. If they would come forward and be part of this, that we can acknowledge what you did for our city and our country, and to celebrate that. So with that, thank you, Monique, thank you for, I'm sitting here thinking of all this other stuff that I need to ask her to get done for our city. You all too. She keeps a notepad. It's a lot of stuff. I'm grateful to all this, and I'm grateful to all of you. And again, back to our historians, we have to use history to inspire our future. Thank you.
So we are going to do the ceremonial unveiling right now with Mayor Cooper, and we're going to invite those to come and take a photograph together. Please, though, the rest of you, kind of sit tight. We do have a few more really important speakers to hear from, and we will continue the ceremony. Thank you for being here, but we're going to go ahead and do the unveiling right now. So later this year, as the mayor mentioned, Centennial Arts Center will celebrate its 50th anniversary, which is a landmark achievement, of course. But before we start giving kudos about community art education, I think it is important that we first tell the truth about what happened here. And that is what this project aims to do. In 1966, Dr. Augustus Bankhead, a professor of TSU, wrote a letter to the editor. We have it on display in the gallery right now, but the letter to the editor in the Tennessean read, "The dry pool is a grim monument." And during the 10 years that the pool was unused, Professor Bankhead stated that perhaps a plaque emblazoned with facts, dates, and community leaders shall be installed with appropriate ceremonies and speeches, so that this barren pit can be identified by those unborn generations who will come to Centennial Park to view Nashville's history should we survive so long. Well, I'm grateful that we have survived so long, and that his words from 56 years ago ring true today as we dedicate this marker. We are now going to hear from Evelyn Lillard, the wife of the late and great Kwame Leo Lillard.
Good morning to everybody. Today I want to talk to you about Leo, Kwame. I call him Saba sometimes. Anyway, today we're here to honor him and Matthew. And I wanted to start with the Parthenon, what it was all about, and in Greece. And so I started out that the Parthenon in Nashville, the Athens of the South, with a real-life replica of the Parthenon with its statues of Athena, even in size, right here in Centennial Park. The many colleges here are surrounded or near, playing a great part, and the great Parthenon is housed in Greece, where its people struggled continuously to grow in all ways possible, economically, politically, with different countries and political figures. This was through many years, even through the years that Matthew Walker and Leo Lillard broke the rule of going to swim in the pool at Centennial Park, where they were not wanted. In Greece, some of the political people said they were there to purify Greece. They were not received well in their own place because they did not have the land, space, and resources in their surroundings to accommodate its people. They struggled through many years, up to 1968 especially. They were still in crisis. Does that sound like us? Was the Parthenon built here with that in mind? The Parthenon, such a wonderfully structured place that people come near and far to see, sits in Greece with its many problems to hold together its democracy. So today, since 1961, we celebrate knowing that Matthew and Leo broke the rules of going into a swimming pool here 61 years ago. That was not well received at that time, nor at this time. There has not been another one here, nothing other than closing it 61 years ago. I laugh to myself as I think sometimes, you mean the taint of black didn't go away yet? Why have the authorities not figured a way to have another pool? Do they think they'll have to clean or get rid of the rainbow of children the next time? Even though kids today can go to a public pool, we still fight for many kinds of public accesses, which is just a beginning to the discussions of Matthew and Leo during their time. It was not just the pool or the sit-ins, but the quality of people, the love of children and teaching them. As they went through their childhood as friends, but grew up individually to create places of access that we still participate with and enjoy today. Matthew, to me, was somewhat quiet and serious. If he, Leo, and I were together, Leo would aggravate me about anything, and Matthew would say, "Leave her alone." So I thank you, Matthew. Leo was a person of fun. He kept the kids entertained, especially his with stories of anything that mostly related to all his teachings about life. He even had characters that he would use to teach these lessons, but didn't seem like lessons. That way, they would remember. He was always aware of the need to get things done for the community, the people, not just here, but anywhere. But interestingly enough, that didn't mean what we needed done at home. It seemed that it was done only because he was there. He didn't have to do it. The Lillards want to mention that the great work of the Walkers, from his dad and the Matthew Walker Health Center, his brother, his sister, and his son. As we honor Leo and Matthew, their contribution, we will remember their sacrifice, time, energy into what they contributed to our city and state that we have and use access to today. On his last major travels to South Africa, he learned that the renewal and revamping of the nation's constitution was important to set a new tone. He was a studier of history and humanity, who loved life and showing people the beauty of life. Although we are not a governing body for an entire nation, what new tone can we set for living and improving our lives? He never stopped, nor should you.
And apologies for not sticking to the bulletin, but Dr. Lee Williams of TSU, please. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning. Left my prepared notes in the truck, so that might be kind of dangerous. So Phyllis, give me a sign if I need to step away from the mic. This is an important space in our city, and what I want to engage in for a few minutes is let's think about what it represents. I went to church with Kwame. Kwame attended the same church as our First Baptist Church, Capitol Hill. My First Baptist family is out there. Good morning to you all. After church, I would kind of hang out and wait to see if I could talk to him. And you know, there was always a receiving line for Kwame because people loved him and wanted to speak to him. But I'd wait patiently, and then when I finally got my opportunity to speak, I would ask him a question that I perhaps had thought about in grad school but never got answered because I didn't have access to people that actually participated in the Nashville movement. So I remember one Sunday I pulled him aside and said, Kwame, man, what really happened at the pool that day? And he talked about how he was talking to Mr. Walker. He said, hey, let's go swimming. I said, where? At the pool at Centennial Park. And for me, that reveals just how important young people are to any type of movement that you engage in. You know, you need some folks that are a little bit older that might be ready to think things through, but oftentimes we need young folks who are impulsive and say, okay, we need to do this and do this right now. They get to this space and they are turned away. Okay, y'all can't swim in here today, and I won't rehash what Mother Lillard just laid out for you, but for me, I thought about what it represented, and that they did not want black and white bodies being in the sort of intimate space that a pool is, right? But then I paid attention to how the city responded. They didn't just close this pool, they closed all 23 pools in this city, and they're saying like, hey, because Mr. Lillard and Mr. Walker wanted to swim, nobody gonna swim in Nashville this year. But they went a bit further. When asked why they were doing this, they said, you know, newspaper says there was a budgetary issue. They found money in the budget to back up some cement trucks to this space and fill it up, and to essentially ensure that nobody would ever swim in this space again. No matter how hot it got in Nashville, you weren't gonna come here and swim. This space sat dormant for a while. And it is remarkable in that, and y'all walk with me for a little bit. You know, Mayor Ben West in 1960 spoke to Diane Nash at the courthouse, at City Hall rather, and he said that he didn't believe it was right to discriminate against a person because of their race. But y'all correct me if I'm wrong. His administration was the same one that filled up this pool. So, what does this say to us as Nashvillians? We should celebrate this space because it took some courage for these young men to come here and say, hey, we're going to go swimming, knowing everything that we know that transpired from 1960 to the moment they set foot here. We know that they were beating down people at the bus stations. They were spitting on people. We know that, some of our people are still traumatized by that moment to this day. So I humbly submit to you that we should not forget about that. Be mindful that this was a place that Nashville created to basically affirm its commitment to Jim Crow. 60 years later, we are trying to do better. We'll come here and we'll consider this marker, but I ask you to look at it as a starting point for us to do better. There are a lot more stories in this city that needs to be told. And I'm just a little professor at TSU, and I get 25 students in my Black Nashville class every semester, so I'm doing what I can. But for those of y'all that came up during the 60s, I'm not trying to get into y'all ages or anything, but y'all probably in your 70s right now, that's right? Y'all got stories to tell about this place and other places around the city, and we don't want y'all to take those stories with you to Greenwood Cemetery or wherever we lay y'all to rest. We need y'all to tell these stories right now. So in closing, I want to commend Monique and the parks, the mayor's office, Josh and the folks out here, and everybody involved in this moment. And I'd like to get y'all to realize that this is just a starting point. We have much, much more work to do. Thank you.
I'm going to turn the mic over now to Dr. Candice Coney, the niece of Matthew Walker Jr.
Good morning. Still morning. I'm going to pull up my notes. I'm going to read. My name is Candice Coney, and I actually live in Florida. I have a long history with Nashville. So I've been coming here all of my life. So it's wonderful to see all of you here. And I'm going to start by reading some remarks by Matthew Walker's daughter, my cousin, Nicole Walker. And she lives in Greensboro. My father, the late Matthew Walker Jr., was among the Freedom Riders who boarded a bus in Montgomery, Alabama, and who were arrested in Jackson, Mississippi during the summer of 1961. It was later during that same summer that he and his friend Kwame, Leo Lillard, decided to go for a swim right here in Centennial Park. Growing up, my father would tell us this story, and we listened with rapt attention. I've always been grateful for those stories, and particularly this one. He wanted us to understand that he might have been harmed, but that there was a bigger picture. He knew that even if they were denied entrance to the pool, their unflinching request to enter that pool would put a crack in the hard shell of segregation. Their brave actions that day, laid the foundation for desegregation in Nashville, where I grew up. For this historical marker, our family is truly as honored as he would be if he were here. Thank you all for remembering and acknowledging his actions. M. Nicole Walker. Thank you. Thanks. And I have just a couple of personal remarks. First of all, I want to thank Josh for finding us and asking us to be part of this celebration. By us, I mean the Walker family. We're all very honored by this. For many years also, I wanted to say that, I've known Kwame growing up, and when he and my uncle got together, there was a lot of fun. And the gravitas of this occasion is not lost on me, but I do want to comment on how much fun it was to be the niece of Matthew Walker. Just briefly, as a child, I remember he would come through the door and he would want us to jump on him. And by us, I mean my younger cousins and I, siblings, jump on him, and he would then break away and run free as fast as he could. At top speed, he ran very fast through the house. And I would hear my grandmother say, "Matthew, stop running through this house." And he loved it, and we laughed all the time. So he was a very special uncle to us. A lot of fun. But as a young child, Matthew Jr. was nurtured by greatness. It started in the household of my grandparents, the late Dr. Matthew Walker and Alice Walker. He was the third child, 4 children: Charlotte Walker, a surgeon in Nashville; my mother, Maxine Walker, a homemaker and a teacher; and his younger brother, Daniel, who was a scientist. I thought about some of the young people who he encountered in his youth here in Nashville. People like Dr. Charles Drew, who was a close friend to my grandfather. Names you see driving around town: Z. Alexander Luby, Vivian Thomas. These are all on the street signs. Dr. D.B. Todd. Such was the milieu of his youth. Matthew grew up being shaped by an insular community, a well-informed Black middle class. And it was in this place, this town, where he learned service ideals and social graces, such as in Jack and Jill, which his mother was a founding member of the Nashville chapter. And from the men in the Nashville Sportsman's Club, which his father founded, Matthew learned how to hunt, fish, and tell fishing lies quite frequently. His religious foundation was formed at Clark United Methodist Church, which would later become a hub of the civil rights movement. And as a young teen, in my opinion, I think things changed for Matthew. He was among those who desegregated Father Ryan High School. I think we have a Father Ryan grad, King, that's right. Where he looked racism in the eye, and he felt its effects directly on a daily basis. And I think, and reflect back on that, perhaps it was these challenging days that made Matthew decided that he would take a stand. And things that I think about when he went to college, and I compare them to myself. What was I doing at 19? What was I doing at 20? What was I doing at 21? I wasn't getting on a bus and being beaten for asking for just basic human rights. The things that we all want are the things that he fought for: dignity, respect. So it's with much gratitude that I have been allowed to speak here and represent my family, and I want to thank you all very much.
I'd like to invite Dr. Phyllis Hildreth to the podium now. Thank you.
Good morning. Dignity, respect, the work undone. I stand here today not as a Nashville native, but as a daughter of diaspora who came to this city 16 years ago with my husband and have been embraced by our extended family of the community here. And it is to them that I am so honored, humbled, and proud to be able to be admitted into the work that yet continues. Professor Williams, I also won't be long, and I don't have much prepared remarks, but I do want to, just for a brief moment, you've heard the story, we've talked about the past. Let's situate and contextualize this present moment so that we can look forward to the work that yet awaits us. I have a computer that doesn't want to work here. Hold on a second. Thank you. So, I know a place. Ain't nobody crying. Ain't nobody lying. This place, we're gonna stop lying to the racists. Where is this place? I'll take you there. That famous, iconic anthem of the Staple Singers charted to the top in 1972, the year that the Arts Center opened. But before we get to that, let me talk about the place that we know. For many of us, when we talk about I know a place, we may be thinking about up yonder and over there, Reverend, is that right? But sometimes the closest we can get to that place in space, in the middle of what we're going through right now, is a beloved park. Where is that place of beauty, of joy, of sacred fun? That place that we understand the other part of the story is these two young men were taking a break from the freedom rides to have a moment of fun. They knew a place. So, the song, I'll Take You There, came out while the civil rights struggle was still raging and after the assassination of so many of our iconic leaders. And yet, it imagines a time or a place where things might get better, where lying to the racists is a thing of the past. There's a beautiful audacity in that image. The same beautiful audacity that has powered gospel music since before the advent of recorded sound. The same beautiful audacity that motivated those two young, free, freedom-loving boys to seek a place in 1961. In the summer of 2017, August 12th to be exact, in Charlottesville, the folk in that city knew a place, and they wanted to break down the barriers so that others could enjoy the beauty and the fun there. You see, these young men had to break down physical barriers and legal barriers to come to participate. In Charlottesville, the people were breaking down psychological barriers. Why should I have to come see the history of hatred embodied in these monuments? They knew a place, and they wanted to make it available to everybody. That day ended in tragedy with yet another martyr to the movement, Heather Heyer, being slain doing this work of freedom. 2 weeks later, September 6, 2017, a few of us on the Centennial Park Conservancy Board Program Subcommittee knew a place. We were here, we were having a meeting, just normal business. And think about the weight. You know how the headlines weigh on us. And so as the meeting was winding to an end, somebody said, it was just terrible what happened in Charlottesville. We feel so helpless. What can we do? And somebody in that meeting said, maybe we can tell the truth about our own place right here. We might not be able to tear down monuments in Charlottesville and Richmond and so many other places, but we know a place right here that has a hidden history. One that I never heard about for the 16 years I was here as a diaspora daughter. And when I started asking my native Nashville friends, many of them didn't know either. And so that began our journey. In October of 2018, tentatively, a few of us dipped our toes in the waters of truth and history to begin to tell the story of what happened in this place. 4.5 years later, we come to thank the Lillard family, to thank the Walker family, to thank the Gentry family, and all other families that knew a place and tried to press their way here. We thank you for not letting the story die. We also come today not to congratulate, but perhaps to encourage Nashville metropolitan government for making this belated and modest down payment on a restorative act of truth and liberation. We all get weary, we all get tired, and sometimes we want nothing more than to take the little ones in our lives to come to the park for a place of joy and peace. We know a place. You come here on a Sunday, you see those stories all around. Many of us in our hearts hold some of our fondest memories because we knew a place. But the places aren't available to everybody until all of the truths are told. I know a place, Nashville, that I'm gonna have to say, every now and then steps up and shows out. Thank you, Nashville, for beginning this good work. Amen and Ashe.
Thank you so much. And now with conclusion remarks by Howard Gentry, I do want to invite you all into the gallery for a reception when we close here today. And of course, the plaque is available for photos as well.
Wow. You know, I know we all have somewhere to go, and I hate that this is the conclusion because the stories are amazing. And the stories are important. I mean, when I listen to you talk, your granddaddy used to take me fishing when I was a little boy. He and my dad were best friends, and your mom used to look out the window when I keep my beagles in the cage. She thought they were Daniel's, but they were mine. Leo, I knew his daddy. And Leo, wow. Matthew, Leo. So, y'all know I've been in politics for a few years. And I was the first, one of the first, a long time ago. And I was really hoping and praying that Leo and Matthew, who've known me ever since I was a baby, would get on my train. But they made sure that they never got on my train. They made sure that I got on their train. And they made sure till they weren't here anymore that I got on their train. Because they knew the position I was in. They knew that I cared. They knew that I would do things, but they didn't know that I could be tough. They didn't know that I really knew what I was doing. They didn't know that I would not allow myself to become marginalized and just go with the flow. So they kept testing me. Yeah, you know that. They kept testing me and testing me all the way through, but they always supported me. And that's what I needed, and that's what I know them for. So it didn't start. Yeah, it did start when they got in the pool, but it didn't end after the pool. And so I love them for that. I appreciate them for that, and they should be aptly honored for that. Now, I had a little role too, and I would always tell Leo, I didn't get to tell Matthew, he left us a little earlier. You know, they did come and pay their way and get in that pool, and that took toughness. I wasn't so tough. I lived right down the street. When I was a little boy, Troy, thanks to you because you raised me down the street, one day when I was about 8, 9 years old, we were walking from TSU, and I had my swimming trunks on. I saw the pool. It was getting dark. My buddies wouldn't do it. I jumped the fence, and I jumped in the pool. So I'm the silent first. And I told that story in the room and thought that it was my story to tell, but there was somebody in the room said, yeah, I remember that, you did. So it wasn't so silent, but I remember my mother sitting there, and this is the first time she heard it, and she said, you really jumped in that pool? But I did. And what also gets missed in the story is after Leo and Matthew did come to the pool, they did close it, and they did say that it was for budgetary purposes. But what sometimes gets missed in the story is that it got reopened 3 years later. That's not when they put the concrete there. They reopened it. And as I look over in that area, I look over here and remember my mama when she brought me to the pool the first day it reopened. And she sat out there in their car. And she was not sitting in her car worrying whether I was going to drown, because I learned how to swim when I was 3 or 4 years old. She was sitting in that car to make sure I would be okay. And we swam in that pool. And I came out crying, and my mama said, why are you crying? I said, a little girl just asked me because she see my tail. And that has stayed with me all my life, and that's why my mama had to sit there to make sure she was able to catch me at a moment like that and help me. And guess what she told me? Baby, you don't have a tail, and you need to pray for that young girl. And that's what she told me. After then, they concreted the pools in Nashville. After then, they concreted the pool at the fairgrounds and all over Nashville, because they were not going to allow the law to change their hearts and their minds at that time. So the reason I'm telling you this is the stories are important. I heard the mayor say they're going to put plaques up all over the city to tell the story about Nashville, to tell stories about John Lewis and what have you, and that is great. I look at this plaque right here, and you see how it ends. It said they blamed the sweeping closures on budgetary concerns. Now, I'm proud of this plaque being here. I'm proud of having a role to play in this. I am absolutely proud of Leo and Matthew, independent of all of this. But what troubles me right now is how can we put plaques up and tell the story all over the city, and we can't do it in our schools, both high schools and our colleges? There's something wrong with that. And so as we celebrate this day and we celebrate this act, you want to silence me at the same time. That's not going to work. So what is important today is that each and every one of us tell the stories. The laws can't stop us from talking. Tell the stories. Make sure that your kids know, so they won't ask another black kid or kid that looks like them where their tail is. Don't allow that kind of ignorance to be there. And I know that I'm the first African American, along with Carolyn Tucker, councilman at large. I know I'm the first African American vice mayor. I'm the first African American constitutional officer, and God bless for all of that. But what's more important to me is that you know how I became that. You know the story behind my life. You know that I was told no. You know that I was asked if I had a tail. So that molded me. I had a mother waiting for me to help me through that. Those are the kind of stories that mold us to be the people we are, and those stories need to be told. So thank you for starting. Thank you for the plaques. Thank you for the honor. But I challenge each and every one of you to make sure that the stories are told, whether they can be told in the schools or not. Tell them to your children. Tell them at your breakfast tables, your dinner tables. Tell them at church. Tell them everywhere. Thank you, everybody, for coming out today. Thank you for being here, and God bless you all.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.